Hello there everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr, and if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? Can I get an amen up in here? Welcome to this week's Should You Pull video for Edward's banner in Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, where we're going to be taking a look at Edward as a brand new character and his kit, Palom as well as his rework and his EX Plus that's going to be coming around, and the event itself so that you guys know what to expect when it comes to tackling the Chaos and the Chaos Challenge. So if that's all stuff that you guys are interested in, then of course stay tuned and keep on watching. As always guys, don't forget to check out all of the social media links in the description box below, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord and Patreon. On Twitch this week, I'm not working on Saturday night, so I should be hopefully continuing and getting near to the end of my Final Fantasy IX playthrough. And I'm also, speaking of that, planning something that I think should be really fun for both Twitch and YouTube, so stay tuned for that with regards to the Final Fantasy series as a whole. In Patreon, obviously I shout out one of my patrons at random every time I release a video, and today that person is going to be Ferntendo, who is a recent addition to my Patreon, so thank you very, very much for that. And of course with Patreon as well, you can be featured within the Would You Pull section of my videos now, so if that's something that you're interested in, definitely click on that link in the description box below. Don't forget to check all of the websites associated with Opera Omnia for further information if you need it, and of course all of the other content creators out there besides myself all deserve those follows and subs as much as I do. So first things first, let's take a look at one of the last characters, but not the last character, to get their EX realization, and that character is Palom, who is featured on the banner alongside Edward. Palom gets a heck of a rework, actually, while we're here talking about it. Basically, he gets more hits, like substantially more hits on everything that he does. He gets more attack and max brave overflow from various buffs that he gives himself, and he just hits really hard. So Bluff gets the dark arts boost he gets makes it so that he has more attack, and he has brave overflow come off of it as well, through his other buffs as well. It also changes to just having an HP attack come off of it, turning into a 6-hit brave HP, and then the brave plus that he gets from this becomes a 6-hit bravery attack. However, it doesn't get an increase in its skill count. Neither Bluff nor Dissidia Ice Crystal get increase in their skill count. However, with the Dissidia Ice Crystal extension that you can see here in the rework he's got, he gets a much better version of his HP plus dual cast, where it's now a 6-hit brave HP attack with brave overflow and 50% splash damage. And we'll see as we go into his EX and his EX Plus how helpful this actually is. But not only that, but all of the plus variants of Dissidia Ice Crystals, that's plus, double plus, Great Dissidia Ice Crystal, gain 6 hits on top of the 2 they already had, so they become 8-hit brave HP attacks. And then the HP splash damage, which was originally 40, 60, 80, 100%, is now 50, 70, 90, 100%. And the brave overflow has been increased, splash damage has increased, all that good stuff. But looking at the EX, Palom's EX was actually never really that bad. It was a sort of 2-hit brave HP attack followed by a 5-hit brave HP attack that was, you know, split damage, nothing special, but it inflicted Ice Imperil, and when you put Power Stones into it, it also made it so that he had Ice Enchant on himself, so that everything he did had Ice Enchant, so that he'd be able to deal more damage with his Ice skills. But the EX Plus version of what you get here actually helps him a huge amount in combination with his rework. So at 0 out of 3 he gets slightly more damage, or a large amount more damage, etc. But it also raises the recast speed of Stardust. So basically it's gone from normal cast rate to fast cast rate to extra fast cast rate. So we're talking the same sort of speed as, say, Setzer and Quistis. So you actually only need to use his HP plus twice, his dual cast twice, to be able to recharge this. So he's not nearly as reliant on using his skills as often as you might think. At 2 out of 3, he also starts with a full recast gauge. So he also starts with Dark Arts and Dark Wisdom, so he doesn't have to necessarily go using his skills at the beginning of a fight. He can just use his EX, and it obviously extends the buffs that he has as well, so that he's able to just start rolling off those HP pluses and then using his skills as and when he needs to refresh buffs or just deal that extra amount of damage. And he starts with dual cast as well, so he's able to just go straight into it. And then 3 out of 3, it becomes a 4-hit brave HP and then a 7-hit brave HP that has a much larger brave overflow, and it also refunds bravery after the first attack, so its damage output is going to be that much stronger. Palom is actually a really nice consolation prize with this banner, I feel, and it's something that, honestly, if I got it, I don't have it now, and if I got it along the way to getting Edward or, you know, fingers crossed, Ardyn's Burst, I'd be really happy about it, like Maria. But all Palom really does is damage. He's an ice. He's very much an ice attacker, so you're never going to bring him into anything that resists ice, even if he has Imperil in his EX. And he does do a lot of damage. Like, his HP plus is one of the best I've seen in a very long time. But it's all he does, and he's not somebody that you're going to be bringing to many different Lufenia difficulty fights. Like, there are certain other EX characters that you'd probably look at before you looked at Palom. But his damage output is pretty substantial for this point in the game. You just have to bear in mind that we are at the very tail end of the current power level of the game, so the very tail end of Chaos era before we start moving into Lufenia era. So try not to be too blinded by that by going for Palom. So now let's have a look at Edward and what exactly he brings to the table when it comes to being a new support character with some unique things that set him apart from other support-based characters. He provides the batteries, he can heal himself, he's got good auras, but he has got one thing in his LD, which is a unique debuff that I think most people focus on very heavily when it comes to Edward, and that being the main draw about him. However, there are certain other aspects to Edward that also make him appealing, so let's look at his skills. Bard Song is a party battery with a Brave HP attack attached to it, which is competitive with today's standards after you give it all of its buffs, the 15 CP, 55, etc., that grants Hero's Rhyme for 5 turns, 10 turns if you have the 15. It's a party bravery or party attack based aura that also raises overflow, which is great for this day and age. Any brave overflow you can get that makes you hit that 9999 9 damage on your DPS characters, it's going to be helpful. It also has party brave regen, and it also has an additional, like, furthers itself if you've already been buffed by awakened courage, which we'll get to into a moment, where it becomes Hero's Rhyme 2. So it buffs himself by 40% attack and his allies by 60%, I believe. But whenever he takes damage, it reduces its duration by a turn, and this is something that's a trend within Edward's kit, is that when you or your enemy takes damage, it reduces the amount of turns left on the buff/debuffs that he provides. However, it's a very strong buff. It does help quite a lot. It does a decent amount of damage. You get a fairly decent number of skill uses out of it, 8 in total, I believe, and it does the job. It's kind of got your party auras and everything. Hide is a very odd attack. It's basically a party battery again that grants him Budding Courage, which increases his max bravery and his attack by 20%, and it increases his evasion rate by 100% for 4 turns, and dispels Awaken Courage, which is what he gets when he uses a secondary version of Hide. So when Edward hides, he's like, oh, I don't have that much of a buff right now, but I'm unable to be hit by anything that's not a guaranteed attack. He also has HP regen while he has this as well, which is handy. And it also changes his hide attack into Return, which is a Brave HP attack that dispels the hide ability, Budding Courage, so that he doesn't have the evasion rate anymore, but it instead grants him Awakened Courage, which raises his max bravery and attack further, and it also obviously turns Hero's Rhyme into Hero's Rhyme 2, so his actual party, your ability to substantiate his party is that much stronger. It also doesn't consume ability uses when you use Return, so Hide and Return are very much treated as one skill, and then when you put in all of your everything for Hide, so you have 35 CP and your 60 passive, it doesn't have an action delay on Hide, so it doesn't increase your turn count either. So you've got the ability to kind of play around what your enemy is doing, and it's something like if everything's targeting Edward, you can kind of go, nope, don't want to deal with that, and then hide until that portion of the fight is over, where he can return to giving much more bravery to much more stats to his party. So he's got the party auras, he's got everything that a normal support would have, and his damage actually isn't terrible. It's not amazing. He does inflict defense down using Bard Song as well, in combination with the debuff that he gets from his EX, which actually adds up really nicely to lowering all of your opponent's stats in a very unique way. You get just a lot of buffs, a lot of debuffs, and just auras and batteries and all the stuff that you would normally get from a support, but in addition, he can hide away from the fight so that he doesn't get damaged or targeted in anything that would really hurt him. Looking at his EX, Mystic Waltz, The first thing you'll notice here is the normal recast rate. This is fantastic. Like, the fact that you can extend longevity along with his LD, along with his good HP plus, along with everything else he gets, you're going to be able to recast his EX very frequently. It's a Brave HP attack with 100% AoE HP, which is never a bad thing, and it inflicts a stack of a unique debuff that stacks up each time you use it, and it looks like it doesn't like last all that long, but 6 turns in combination with the high recast rate, you are going to be able to get those stacks up as much as possible. So you're going to be able to get to those 3 stacks of it. The first stack lowers their initial bravery. When you do it again, it lowers their initial bravery and their max bravery. And then if you do it 3rd time and then maintain that 3rd time by continually using Mystic Waltz, it lowers their max bravery, their initial bravery, their attack, and it stops them from being able to gain bravery. So all these bosses that really kind of like just gain bravery and kill you, they can't do that anymore. And I think that that last bit is worth the price of entry when it comes to Edward by itself. I think that having that ability to just kind of go, nope, certain bosses can't do their big kill move is something to be looking out for. With the EX Plus, then you get HP plus plus and Brave Attack plus plus, which is fantastic, and he extends the debuffs that he inflicts by 1 turn each, so that's Sleep from his Lullaby, obviously the Spoony Noise or the frame debuff that he gets from his EX, the defense down that he gets from his Bard Song, all of them get extended. And he also gets a 3-hit Brave HP attack that raises party bravery, including his own, which is never a bad thing, based on how much HP damage he deals. So he's going to work really well with other battery-based characters as well. And then at 2 out of 3, he starts with Awaken Courage, Hero's Rhyme 2, and no ability consume use on the first turn, so you can either hide straight away, use another Bard Song, just to get that charge going for his Mystic Waltz. It's just a nice extra that he has, and then you also start with the frame debuff from his EX straight away. I refer to it as the frame debuff because the names obviously change quite frequently. Like I've said, Spoony Noise as it's listed on Dissidia DB here, or it's Debilitating Noise in Japan because the Spoony Bard meme was never really a thing in Japan. It's very much an anglicised thing. And then at 3 out of 3, 8-hit Brave HP AoE that inflicts a really nasty framed debuff. I adore framed debuff characters that lower initial bravery and attack, like Fran, like Charlotta, like Edward, because I love kind of manipulating and stacking them up and seeing how low I can get my enemy's stats. And Edward's a great fun character to use just for that on its own. And then Edward's LD, he only gets 3 uses of this one for very good reason. Sleep is pretty powerful. Basically, it's the main reason that people want to pull for Edward in the first place, but I hope that I've kind of been able to show you guys that there's a lot more to Edward than just his sleep debuff. He reduces all enemy bravery to 0 straight away, which is very handy, especially given the combination of this and the Mystic Waltz 3 debuff so that they can't gain bravery. And I mean gain bravery in a sense of, like, they can't just gain it. They can attack you and steal it, but they can't gain it. We've had debuffs similar inflicted on our parties before, particularly during Abyss and things like that, so try not to get those things confused. And more party battery, which is nice, and inflicts sleep to all targets for 5 turns if you put all the power stones in. This lowers their defense and is essentially paralysis. They can't do anything while they're asleep. But every time they are damaged by one of your characters, that turn count goes down by 1. Basically, the main reason to use this, and I will point out that it actually delays them by a turn as well when they wake up, so there's that to bear in mind as well. Like, you can manipulate the turn order in very strange ways using Edward that are very helpful. So certainly in early Lufenia and things like that. But the time you want to be using this, and the boss for this particular event is a great example of that, is enemies that like to take multiple turns in a row. Like things like characters that will, or enemies that will just like attack and then attack again straight after. Sleep ruins that. It's like they don't get to act on any of those turns, and they get, when they obviously it'll pass time and they will wake up eventually. You're not going to be able to keep an enemy asleep for 5 turns, but even 2 turns is a very powerful thing to just have access to as and when you want it. Combine this with characters that do have access to paralysis, like Raijin or Desh or Cloud when he gets his rework and his LD burst, and you end up with some really good stuff here. The combination of like debuffs that make your enemy unable to act and delay, and like a Midatelli and being able to remove turns entirely. I put Edward's sleep in that kind of category where I really like it, and I really like the ability to just render my enemies completely nullified. And I think that in combination with the batteries, the hiding, the Mystic Walls, I think that Edward is a really, really strong character. In terms of artifacts, both of these guys are, well, Palom in particular is very simple. You want to attack and max bravery. He hasn't got a C50 that's all that scary or anything, so we don't really need to worry about it. And then with Edward, you could argue that you would want attack on him because, like, he does have a significant number of hits in his kit. He's not there to deal damage though, so you could argue either initial bravery or max bravery as well. But you are definitely going to want his C50, the Prince of Damcien, where he gets initial bravery and max bravery as long as his hero's rhymes are active, which they should be always as long as you're using Edward. So now let's talk about the event itself. So the boss for this particular fight is the Rug Raptor, which is a variant on the Elveret El Noil from Final Fantasy VIII, but it looks really strange because it's like a bird with a giant egg attached to the bottom of it. It's a very odd looking boss. And basically the things that these bosses like to do, because there's two of them, first of all, they enrage if one of them dies, so you want to try and kill them as close to each other as possible, so be careful of that. You don't want to, unless you like in regular chaos and you're going to turn cheese everything with the mid-Italians and delays and everything, be very careful not to kill them too far apart from one another. They like to use delay in their kit, so if they break you, they like to use AoE delays, so they will then take extra turns and things like that. These guys like to take a lot of extra turns. They have a framed debuff, which I believe is going to be called Gale and Gale Plus, which decreases your defense and inflicts poison on you. And they have an attack where they'll have like a ghost of themselves come out and attack for them and hit you, like with multiple bravery attacks. And then after that, they then get like an aura, like a blue aura, that increases all of their stats. They take less damage, and they're going to act twice the next turn. So basically what I was saying about Edward and his sleep coming into play is that you're basically trying to actively counter that and make it so that they're not able to like absolutely just go big old bravery attack, horrible debuff, and then HP attack straight after. Sleep is going to really help with that. And they also gain bravery gen and HP damage up after they've used that attack as well. So they buff themselves with some pretty nasty like buffs while they're at it. So basically, just breaking them is not going to be enough. You need to be able to either tank the hits or stop them from doing them altogether. And then basically the characters that I would suggest for this are characters, if you're not planning on pulling for Edward, then characters that can do something similar to him. So Desh is fine here, like because he's got the HP damage reduction on him. He might paralyze the enemies. Raijin would be good here because he has like healing in his kit. He has the lightning, imperil, and enchant, so he can increase your damage output. And obviously he has paralysis, like on call. So being able to do that kind of thing is going to be very helpful here. Barsh and characters like him and Nine, any kind of tank that makes it so that you're not going to just take HP damage through the nose and then just fall down dead. Barsh is obviously going to be the best character for this because he's going to make it so that he can't die, and if they're locked onto him, they are generally single target attacks after they've done the ghost attack, so it's not too bad. And then you just want a damage dealer, whether that be Arden or Noctis or anyone realistically that's just going to output damage. In terms of synergy characters for the Chaos Challenge, then obviously I plan on pulling for Edward, and I'm sure a lot of people do, but there are going to be some people that don't, for whether they can't or whether he's just not damaging enough for them as a support character. And in that case, like, perhaps you may have pulled for Kimahri. Kimahri's actually very helpful here because of his HP damage reduction and his total darkness debuff that comes from his EX is going to help during that double attack phase, and that won't, and, you know, because they're not nice to deal with. Arden's your best choice for a damage dealer, easily, and if you don't have him, and you have Palom, then Palom will definitely suffice being a synergy character. And then Hope is also a character on the banner as well, who is very helpful by being able to reduce HP damage, bravery damage, healing, batterying. He's kind of got the whole shebang when it comes to him. So if you've got Hope available, or you pull him while you're pulling for Edward, then he's going to be very helpful as well. Basically, just try to make sure that when the enemy is... when the Rug Raptors are doing their ghost attacks and when they're about to do the double up attacks, just be prepared for it and don't let them break you while they're doing it, because otherwise you're going to be delayed and it's going to make it a really hard time for you. If you've got Edward and you've got Hope and you've got Kimahri, then you'll be able to debuff and kind of like retreat your way out of taking too much damage. If you have Edward and Hope, you're just not going to take damage very much during the fight because of his defense is up, and then Edward make it so they can't gain bravery and their attack down. So now we come to the big question of the video: should you pull on Edward and Palom's banner? Now, I personally will probably pull a fair few tickets into this banner and really hope to get Edward, because I think that he's interesting, I think he's unique, I think he's powerful, I think he combines well with a lot of characters because he doesn't have so many buffs or debuffs that he clashes with other characters. He does have some drawbacks in that his damage outside of his EX could be a little better, and he does kind of have that weird thing where if he takes damage a lot, then it's going to reduce his hero's rhyme and stuff like that. He is quite quirky and tricky, and you do need to use him in such a way that you know what you're planning to do in 2 or 3 turns time, rather than having to do things in the moment. But I think that those unique mechanics are both viable for early Lufenia. He's actually used in a good 3 or 4 different Lufenia fights that I've seen on videos online. So if you search for Edward Lufenia, you're probably going to find him used in teams in that difficulty. So if you want an early character that's going to carry you through some of them, he'll do you quite well. If enemy nullifying moves, or turn nullifiers, turn erasers, things like that, so paralysis, mid-Italian, delay, sleep, are things that appeal to you and you want as many of them as possible, and you want things that are just going to make certain fights that much easier, then I think that Edward is at least worth your tickets here. And if you still don't have Arden's Burst, like I don't, and you still have some ingots left over, that perhaps if you've got Palom, you could kind of go, oh, okay, well maybe I could throw some ingots at Palom, then you get a nice little consolation prize. However, I wouldn't pull on this banner for Palom, because he is just a damage dealer. And I know I say just a damage dealer all the time, but we've had other magic damage dealers that do more different things recently, and we have more coming out in the near future that are going to be much more viable for Lufenia difficulty than Palom is. If Edward's character does turn you off, because I know a lot of people who've played FF4 just straight up don't like Edward for his character, they think he's whiny and he's a coward and that he's just a bit of a rubbish character really, you don't have to pull for him here. He's one of those characters that I think is really good mechanically and is really enjoyable to run because of how he plays in the game. But you don't have to. Like, supports are something that some people will say you have to pull on every support there is going, and you don't necessarily. As long as you have a decent number of them, or at least enough that you can go through every dimension's end, go through and like be able to cover all your roles and things like that, you don't have to pull on every support character. I do personally think that Edward's a really strong one, but if you don't, and he's like, you know, he's interesting, but you've had to spend loads of resources on Noctis, Arden, Barsh, Nine, Rinoa, Kimari even, or you're waiting for Kefka, you're waiting for Warrior of Light, you're waiting for Kuja, then you don't have to necessarily pull here. He's very strong, but he's not an absolute, oh my god, you have to pull for this character right now, otherwise you're going to make your life harder for the next X months. But he does make certain fights a lot easier. And some people also feel that turn nullifying moves like Sleep are a bit cheap and a bit boring, and they don't really make the game more enjoyable. And if that's the case, then perhaps Edward's not for you either. And then the last thing before the end of the video, we're going to be talking about Would You Pull, which is my collection of data from my Patreons to showcase what other people would do as to whether they would pull on a particular banner or not. In the case of Edward's banner, as you can see on the graph I have here, out of the people that I asked, 68% said they would pull on Edward's banner using tickets, 24% said that they would pull using gems, and 9% of them said they would not pull for Edward on his banner. So to look at some of the comments, unfortunately, some of the I didn't get any comments from any of the people that voted no on the banner, so I can't really give you any reasons from other people as to why they wouldn't pull on this banner. So if you are out there and you're voting on these comments, if you're not pulling on Edward, definitely leave a comment below and let me know why you don't particularly want to pull on him. But for those that have said that they do want to pull on him, Last DFFOO says, I go with some tickets by myself for Edward because I really like gimmicky characters that bring something new to the table. I enjoy playing around with some teams and test new things. If I get his full kit, I'm happy. If not, I've got other supports I can use. I like this comment because I enjoy gimmicky characters that bring something new around as well, and I particularly like experimenting with debuff-based characters like the Spoony Bard debuff that you can combine with things like Fran, things like Charlotta. I loved back in the day where you could abuse initial bravery being set to 0, and you can do stuff like that, and Edward is a character that you can do that with. But if you don't pull him, then there are, like I said, plenty of other support characters that you can use. There's more coming, so don't panic if you don't get Edward. ABC says he's pulling tickets because despite Edward's shameful self in FF4, putting enemies to sleep is great. Paired with the debuffs, gravity and battery, he should be a great support. And I can't disagree with that. I think that they're like, as much as Edward is unlikable in FF4, his kit in this is really good. Jealous says tickets, supports are always good to have a deep selection of, and his sleep mechanism is a unique one that I can see being handy. That being said, I already have a deep support roster-wise, and as fun as the sleep thing is, I don't think I'll need it. So it's nice to have if I get lucky, not important enough for gems. I feel very much the same way here as well. Like I said, I'm going to go in with tickets and not gems. Had I not gone in so hard for Arden's LD, I probably would have considered gems because I really like Edward's kit, but I don't think that you have to have him. Like, he's a great character to spend tickets on. It's not one that I would necessarily spend gems on. Raylius here says 200 to 300 tickets for Edward. He's a very good unit, but not gem pity worthy to me after playing with him on JP. He performs very well when he does shine, and I think I used him in 1 or 2 different Lufenias as well. So like I said, in early Lufenia, there are quite a few fights where Edward can come in handy, so I wouldn't necessarily just write him off as somebody you're only going to use for the last part of Chaos and then never use him again. I think that now's sort of the time where we're going to be preparing for Lufenia, and as a matter of fact, I do have a video that I'm planning so that you guys can go into Lufenia with a bit more sort of confidence about being able to tackle it with what you have and characters that are going to be useful even if you haven't necessarily pulled for LDs and bursts just yet. So thank you all very much for your comments with regards to Edward's banner. I'm glad that there's been such a positive reception to the Would You Pull section on these videos that I started with Kimari's event, and I hope to continue this as a trend. So if you would like your voice to be heard and your comments and stuff to be featured on the videos as well as being shown whether you're going to pull on something or not, then definitely check out the Patreon link in the description box below, because I appreciate all of the support that I have, and I'm so glad that I can do something that showcases you guys and what you guys want from a banner. So that's going to be all from today's video. Let me know in the comments below whether you plan to pull for Edward or Palom, or if you're still like me trying to get Arden's burst and failing miserably. And let me know what you're planning on taking to the actual event itself. Are you preparing for Lufenia now? If you are, let me know in the comments below what characters you're looking forward to using in early Lufenia. And of course, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell for notifications on any future Dissidia or Opera Omnia videos I might make, as well as hopefully some other videos that I might be making about Final Fantasy in the near future as well. So that's going to be it from me. Take care, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.